So I have made my thoughts on Avowed as clear as I can, but I've never played the game. I've not tried it. I've not gone to any previews or anything. I've no insider information on this game. But my stance has been from the outset that I loved the initial trailer that got me really excited for the game that I've shown you guys a bajillion times because it looked really, really good. And I wanted that. Like, that's what I was hopeful for. It was super dark, gritty from Obsidian. Like, this vibe, I was all here for. Big storm clouds, super dark, spoopy, dare I say. I'm in for this. This is what got me really, really excited. Then we saw this footage of like a huge monster in a cave. I was like, I'm here for it. Turns out the actual game is basically nothing like that and is like super artsy, fartsy, colorful, and like weirdly kelpy and crustacean themed. It's really, really very different. And so stylistically, I feel like I've experienced stylistic whiplash or artistic whiplash, where it's just like, are these the same thing? Like I'm frothing at the mouth. So now that we're kind of over that, and I'm just like, okay, well, forget the original trailer. Let's try to appreciate it for what it is, even though they made this big shift. Now I'm just looking at the trailers. I'm looking at everything. And it seems like this is going to be Outer Worlds with a fantasy spin on it that's a little bit bigger, a little bit more ambitious than that. But the common thread seems to be that people who have tried it say that it recaptures the same feeling as old school BGS titles. Namely, and I think it's in this clip from Destin that we're about to watch, namely that there was, or maybe it was the Insider Gaming guys with Lawrence and those guys. Either way, it's been said, one of these guys that was at the preview said, it has that feeling of one of these games that is too ambitious for its own good, but it's almost like endearing that they were trying to push so hard to go as intense as they could, or as nuanced as they could with the story, or as complex with consequences as they could. Even though they probably couldn't pull that off, they still swung for the fences. And it's that level of ambition that I think was what allowed people to overlook some of the shortcomings in old school BGS games and old school Obsidian games too. And it feels like we're in a similar spot with this. So even though it may not graphically be the most impressive game, or in terms of the level design or scope, it may not be the most impressive game ever, but with everything else they're doing, it almost makes you hand wave that away, or like accept it for what it is and not hold it to too high a standard, you know? But this is a preview from IGN. Destin, friend of the channel, did this one. And so we're going to check it out. I know other creators also covered it. Maddie played it. Force played it as well. I don't typically like looking at videos from individual creators within like a day to 3 days. Like I don't want to affect the performance of their videos. IGN has 18 million subscribers, so I feel like I'm not going to have that much of an impact on how their video does. But that's why we're watching this one instead of those. I don't want people to think like I magically hold IGN to this crazy higher standard or anything. Okay, so here we go. Let's see what Destin says.
Even after the positive preview for Avowed this summer, I found myself wondering if it was a fluke. Maybe it was just a fun mission. Maybe Obsidian won't be able to keep my interest as more quests are discovered. Maybe it was just a nice day. Nope! Avowed is just a lot of fun. Coming fresh off of trying out Dragon Age the Veilguard, I was so happy when I discovered just how evil I could be to people I met along the way right from the start of Avowed. Something Veilguard just didn't fulfill.
This unironically could be one of the great like contrasts to enhance the value of Avowed. Like I really think that part of the reason Fallout 4 was looked down on a lot when it came out was because it came after The Witcher 3, and that made it feel all the more lackluster as an RPG. It was good at other stuff. It just wasn't good at being an RPG. And The Witcher 3, in terms of writing, in terms of the seriousness, in terms of production value, everything else, it kind of outperformed it. So by contrast, it looked pretty lackluster. In the same way that Baldur's Gate 3 is kind of making every other RPG that comes out nowadays. Most notably, it came out, and then Starfield came out like a month or two, like a month later. That really made it feel like a lackluster RPG because we just got one of the best RPGs of all time in comparison. And with this, we got Dragon Age Veilguard, a new game in a historied franchise of RPGs that really didn't let you pick a role and play it. It really was not that much of a role play. Or was it Phantom Liberty? I guess it was both technically. But now with this, there is a real potential where people will play Avowed and will compare it to Dragon Age, and that will make this stand out even more. Like I know I'm going to be trying Avowed when I have time between Kingdom Come and Monster Hunter and everything else that's happening in February. But I know like my wife is super excited to jump into Avowed because it's a fantasy role-playing game that actually seems to have role-playing. Shocker, you know? Who would have thunk it?
I'm ready. Do it.
From the start, I had one NPC dropping F-bombs because I was going to leave her in prison. A short while later, a duo would try to intimidate me on a bridge only to meet a swift demise. I wasn't in the mood for their nonsense, I just wanted to be evil, and while I could have handled it the nice way, sometimes being evil is just more fun.
Another win, but who's counting?
Just leaving that last little slap in there just for good measure. That's funny.
It's not just the fact that you have more nuance with every conversation, it's empowering to craft the kind of hero or villain you want to be. Sure,
Imagine
Obsidian
that.
has a story to tell, but I feel
Jesus Christ almighty. You gotta give me a jump scare warning before you put that on screen, dude. Wow. That's... What the hell is even that? What in the... I don't even know, man. Wow. Now that's... Yeah, you're right. Now that's a handsome woman right there. That right there, say it with me, is a handsome woman. Wow. I can't stop staring. I gotta like block it with my hand. It's so refreshing to finally be talking about an RPG that lets you be evil and do bad things. And some people are like, well, but I don't want to be evil. I don't want to do that. I typically play in a good way. I don't think that's necessarily the point. The point is like RPGs, one of the strengths of them is that you can pick your role and you can play the way you want. And even though you may not always choose the bad path or the bad option, it being an option at all is important. It's kind of like, here, I'll block it while we talk about this. So it's just judging you. If you imagine like this is the midline path, okay? The right side is the good actions, being a good person, right? This is the side you go to if you want to be a good person. And this is the evil dialogue option. And then you have middle of the road ones. You may play through this game typically picking the right options, right? You may be going through and your reputation kind of carries like this. But the point is there should be some variance because there may be times when you're like, I just really hate this crazy creature. And so you swing and you do something really evil. But then you can swing back over here and make the good choices most of the time. And then you take a few bad actions and you go back here. But in general, you're floating on the right side. But having evil options allows you to make these exceptional choices where you do something really, really different. It's the same thing like one of my party members, I was talking to them because I'm running a D&D campaign for them, and we were talking about the potential next campaign, and they were brainstorming some ideas for characters. And one of them was like, I mean, I don't know if they were aware of it, but it's basically Dexter. Like they wanted to play as like an evil serial killer kind of person that keeps it hidden, but just mentally justifies the killing by only killing people that really deserve it. Like murderers, they have a soft spot for like children. If somebody harms a child, then they're going to go after them with everything they have, things like that. But that would be a case where maybe your character is playing typically like this, but then occasionally has moments where they do something really good, but then they spike back over here and are doing things really bad, and then really good, and then they play most of the time over here. But having the ability to make those specific, maybe less common choices, that is very, very important in a role-playing game, because it allows you to have that nuance. If you only have the far side of that, if you only have the green, which is kind of Dragon Age in general, like Dragon Age, specifically Veilguard, Dragon Age Veilguard in general, it's pretty much all right here. There's no like, oh no, you can tell the mayor to stay behind. But even then, like he killed an entire village of people. That's probably just like a just choice in general, just not merciful. But all of the choices float in here. And as a result, it feels like you can't really, like you have no say in the story because you really don't. They have nothing over here. You're not allowed to go over here and do anything bad or make any wrong, like evil choices, in which case you're not really making choices at the end of the day. But let's continue and try to get to a different screen than this.
Feel more in control when deciding how these scenarios play out. The character customization options will allow you to craft the face of the character you'll build, and while you don't see it all that often, you can make someone perfectly lovely, or someone that looks like they came straight out of that creepy claymation episode of Adventures of Mark Twain.
Try to survive. Same thing I do every day.
Even the vendors have unique banter. I had the chance to meet the ex-husband of another nearby vendor, and the two would talk badly about each other because of their failed marriage. Another vendor had a past relationship with my companion Kai and warned him not to cross her again. These little beats do a lot to make the world feel like it has a history, and you'll uncover more of that as you adventure. I love these dangling threads that are teased throughout the playthrough. Hopefully, I get to tug on some of them and see how deep each story goes.
Like, seriously, I'm telling you, they just need to hire like DMs for D&D campaigns and they'll handle all of this. Like, there's so many instances where you're like, why can we not just have stories with characters that intertwine, that are not like weirdly self-congratulatory or self-indulgent? Like, why can't we just do that? Aren't you just describing how Mass Effect 1 and 3 used to work? Do you mean with the ability to make occasional bad evil choices? Maybe. I'm not sure what you're saying. But I mean, basically it's like, the point is, if you're gonna have a role-playing game, you got to have variation within moral choices, within all of this stuff. Like, you really, really have to have that. Yes? Okay. Yeah, it's if you don't have that contrast, there's just no role playing. Like, that's not what we're doing. And if you want to have a linear story, okay, but don't call it a role playing game, for the love of God. Like, let's not delude ourselves.
I told you not to show your face around here again.
On the combat front, I also immediately noticed improvements, especially in the sound department. Obsidian clearly spent a lot of time working on the audio and combat flow, and it's immediately noticeable. The sound spikes are so satisfying to hear when you've stunned an opponent and can execute a flurry of blows or bullets, or when using stealth and you're able to execute your prey with an ethereal blade. And what addition?
Ethereal? Isn't it ethereal? Or am I mispronouncing it? Ethereal? I've never heard somebody call it ethereal.
We got to see for the first time was the ability to use third-person or first-person combat. Both feel great, and while I personally opted for the first-person perspective most of the time, third-person is looking and feeling good too. The only slight gripe I have is that the movement can have a bit of that floaty Obsidian style to it in third-person, but that doesn't affect combat all that much.
Who's there? Watch out!
And while I'm discussing my
It definitely feels like, especially looking at those animations running, it feels like the third person thing was probably a late addition.
The time, third person is looking and feeling good too.
See, like the feet don't really track. Watch as she runs and turns. The feet don't stick or plant on the ground. They just kind of glide. See, it's like sliding on the rock. Like, look at that right foot. That's not how walking works, but it's okay. I mean, with most of this, it's like, again, the expectations really decide how this type of thing is tolerated. When a studio is coming out with like AAA budgets, AAA pricing, when they're coming out just putting forward that this is going to be a AAA experience, players expect that level of polish. Players expect the animation quality that we've seen in like, you know, something even going back years, like AC Odyssey, for example, has really solid animation quality during like cutscenes. Or with movement, players expect the foot to plant and stay there, you know. Obsidian's in this weird spot where, technically speaking, they are a AAA studio, but players typically expect AA quality and like jank from them. You know, it's typically how it works. Is it $70? I'm not sure off the dome. I mean, because again, I think most people are going to be playing it through Game Pass. Yeah, it's $70. $70 for the standard. So that's, I mean, that's one thing where you like, for $70, you kind of expect that third person quality, animation quality to be better. But that's the thing, is like when you think of Obsidian, you don't really hold them to that same standard. But to be fair, like also if the writing is good enough, you can overlook a lot of that jank at the same time. Like games are not really, when you're evaluating a game, you're not really evaluating it based on a pass fail where like, oh, you failed the third person animation quality checkbox, therefore your game is a fail and you don't, I'm not gonna recommend you buy it. Like if this is enough, that little slidey animation quality, if that's enough for you to not buy a $70 game, if everything else is good, that's honestly sad. Like that's sad. And I don't think any of you guys are like that, because people don't typically think that way. People evaluate the package. I'm sorry I made that motion. The package. They evaluate the package as a whole. If you have amazing writing, if you have amazing role play and stuff, if the combat's a little janky, if animation during running around is a little janky, who cares? Like it's not that big of a deal. Of course, I'd prefer it if it were amazing, world class, whatever. Sure, but it's not a deal breaker. You can notice it, but I think we have to pair that with it's not a big deal if the rest of the game is good. I'm impressed by the movement, not the animation. It's very vertical. Yeah, I mean, you can even see up here, I think they're going to talk about that, where there's a lot of stuff where you're expected to climb and kind of vault up and down stuff. It seems like level design, they've really put a lot of work in.
But that doesn't affect combat all that much.
Who's there? Watch out!
And while I'm discussing minor complaints, knowing full well that Obsidian still has months of polish time left, I did feel that your companion Kai was a bit too handholdy with his tips at times. There were a few moments when I was simply scavenging for loot and found him whispering tips about a puzzle in my ear.
I think there's something on the upper floor. We might be able to reach it from outside.
Dude. I don't know what it is with every game nowadays having this problem where like they assume every player is brain dead. But like whether you look at God of War Ragnarok or Veilguard had this problem too. Avowed seems to have it in the previews. It's like developers just assume that everybody's stupid and needs to be explained to. And it's kind of insulting at this point. I understand maybe there are gamers that need that, but man, toggle hints. I do agree that that's an easy fix. Yeah. But that assumes that they built it in a way where you can toggle it. So for example, like they would have to have a tag in the code of it saying that that line of dialogue that just played and triggered at this point has this other tag and identifier on it. And we have to have a toggle that checks whether the toggle is turned on before it plays that dialogue at any given moment. And so that might be an easy fix if they did that and they coded it kind of in a forward thinking way. If they didn't, it might be a more involved process to go back through and add the tags like to every piece of dialogue. But that is the easiest fix. Just add a freaking toggle. And what's funny is I actually have in this I have a video in my OneNote that specifically mentions a certain gamer. And I wanted to do this as a segment at some point because we've kind of half done it occasionally. I don't think we've done like a full standalone one. But the point of this was to show like how these guys making God of War, they were tweaking levels to be more quote unquote accessible based on gameplay footage from this guy, a streamer by the name of DSP. And they show clips of DSP playing the game.
Arrows mean interesting themes and that there's a lot of different variety and a lot of different gameplay, right? So we've made a convincing promise to the player. So watch it one more time and I want you to watch just what the camera behavior does.
The taste of Vanir magic led him to new forms of experimentation. We're back. New levels of depravity.
Look where we are. We're back.
They're analyzing him like a monkey in an experiment. It's quite funny. But they do that. And I was like, they're catering level design to people like him. And this is the same guy from this clip that went viral who I don't think most people are like this.
You're kidding me! Riding full speed, the lightning hones in on you and it hits you? You see, this isn't fun. I'm sorry. Randomly, a glue monster appears, takes all of your health. Oh, you don't have enough stamina to climb something standard at the beginning of the game. Oh, lightning just hones in on you and then kills you. How is this a fun? It's bullshit.
Bruh, just
Imagine lightning is faster than your horse can trot. Bad game design. Get your act together, everybody. Come on, Nintendo. What are we doing? What are we doing? But that's the problem. It's like, if you're going to cater games to people that have problem-solving skills like that, we all suffer as a result, because then we're going through levels like this, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to get to that in just a second. I'm just breaking open crates down here. Ah, there's something up there. We should go outside to get it. Go outside, climb the ladder, open the door. You might need to pick it. And then you go in here and you like, shut up. Just add the toggle. That's the easy fix. Add the toggle. Was it God of War Ragnarok that added the toggle, or was that a different game? I don't remember which one it was. But like, that's the easiest fix, is to just add a toggle and at the very least stop catering games. Games like Elden Ring are proof that gamers are capable of solving abstract problems. If they don't solve it by themselves, people are smart. They'll look it up on Reddit or a YouTube guide or whatever if they really can't figure it out. I don't understand why we have to hold everybody's hand all the time. Like, I don't get it. Who's this guy? Why are people building levels based on this guy's playstyle or whatever? That's a great question. It still boggles my mind that there are level designers at Santa Monica Studio that are looking at DSP videos of all people to like inform their design choices. It's remarkable.
Sure.
I think there's something on the upper floor. We might be able to reach it from outside.
Like, we don't need idiot-proof dialogue. Just don't.
I know Obsidian is trying to help out new players, but it takes away from that feeling of accomplishment you get when solving the mystery for yourself. Kai.
Again, new players are smart too, though. Like, gamers are smart. They're all about problem solving. That's why, like, what was it? I heard somebody talking about it where, like, there was a study done where surgeons were evaluated based on whether they also played video games or not. And like, the surgical students that played video games actively, regularly in their day-to-day lives, they performed far better in their exams. They performed way better in actual mock surgeries and stuff. It actually helps with problem solving, abstract thinking. Like, gamers are smart. And part of the reason gamers are smart are because games challenge people to think that way. So don't dumb them down, okay? Like, and I also, again, it's a little insulting because I'm like, I have people in my life that are not particularly great at games, but to think that they couldn't figure out how to go and find an upper level on a building is like pretty insulting. It's just stupid. Anyway.
I know how to solve the puzzle, okay? Like, give me a second.
You got everything you need to fix up your armor. Let's head to camp.
But to get back to the positives, loot was also a highlight, even early on. Upgrading from a bow and arrow to an arquebus felt awesome. And even though I probably said arquebus wrong, the trade-off with the rifle is that it has a long reload time, but once you've upgraded your abilities with it, you'll unlock faster reloads and more damage. And the ragdoll physics add to the fun factor as well.
I will say they've done a lot of work. My headphones are dying. They've done a lot of work on the combat. I remember the first gameplay trailer they had, and it was like, ooh, not quite there, but they've done a lot of work on it. This looks significantly improved. Props to them for listening to like player feedback and feedback from the community and then working to fix it and make it better, because this does look way better than it did before. This is impressive. I think they did a good job.
Yet again, though, my time with Avowed felt all too short. And make no mistake, there was plenty to explore in this small area. I found a spider cave where I took on a spider boss. I found the entire hour-long demo that we had the first time we played Avowed, and a plethora of small stories within the world, like this one guy who happened to be missing a ring and trying to find it. And I left wishing that Obsidian had given us more time to play, but that's a good sign. And so far, everything seems to be coming together in what I can best describe as a really fun RPG. But more importantly, it feels like an RPG where I'm in control of my own destiny, and while the decisions I'm making will have consequences, I love knowing that I get to be the one to—
Jesus Christ, man. You gotta warn me. Who said that this looked like the chick from Fallout? How dare you? And now that you've said it, I can't. I can't unsee it, but like, how dare you? First of all, how dare you? I just can't, man.
directing the orchestra, so to speak.
We'd be most appreciative, of course.
In both of my hands-on sessions with Avowed, I've only been able to see the Dawn Shore section of the map and not much more.
Look at that. Okay. It's pretty big. Pretty sizable, pretty girthy. That, I mean, Outer Worlds was weird because it was Fallout in space, but with really limited levels, and like it was, you could tell it was a game that would have been a lot better with a much bigger budget, much bigger team. But it also probably would not have had the same charm if it were a lot bigger. But this seems to be a game that really works well with that formula, and I am excited to give it a shot. I mean, honestly, these previews make me like, I think this is higher on my priority list than I initially thought. It's just tricky because like this game comes out right in the same like 7-day period as Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Civ 7, which that's a lower priority, I think, for most people. That's not as pressing. AC Shadows, this, Monster Hunter Wilds comes out like a week later. There's a lot of big stuff that's going to land right around this point. And it's frustrating because I'm like, I think it looks good, but Kingdom Come, man, but KCD 2, man. And I don't think anybody can really blame an RPG fan for being torn at this point, you know?
I do hope there's plenty of content here, but I'd really like to see more given how close the February release date is now. When I asked Obsidian about this, they promised several biomes would be explorable, and that will no doubt add a lot to the visual diversity of the world. I just wish we could get a peek at it beyond the footage from the very first gameplay reveal from many months ago. No spoilers on the story here, but the one narrative hook that is set up early on is a mission which takes you to the Voice. This voice leads you through the map and is clearly an entity you'll hear from again during your adventures. When given the chance to help it or refuse to make a deal, I decided against siding with a blue light, as I've learned nothing good ever comes from a deal with an all-powerful entity. But I will be curious to see how that plays out in the end. The Voice did not seem happy.
Who poisons us? We cannot see him.
And that's really the best you can hope for from previews of an RPG like this. You get just enough to leave you wanting more. And Avowed certainly accomplishes just that. I want to power up my companion Kai to see what other attacks he can do. I want to discover the coveted weapons the design team told us about during the pre-hands-on presentation. I want to kill more people and betray my friends. And Avowed is empowering me to do exactly that. Maybe I'll let the Virgin live this time.
It's all right. I'm sure someone else will give me a hand.
Avowed is set for a February 18th release date, and I can't wait to find out just how evil I can be. I'll leave you with this gameplay of how our demo ended. For more on Avowed or all things gaming, you're already in the right place. IGN.
Uh-oh. Just kidding, that's the end of the game. Yeah, I mean, it looks good. It looks good. I'm much more confident in this than what they showed. When was the last one? Maybe like 2-3 months ago. Like way better. So they're making a lot of progress. They're making improvements. I'm very happy to see it. But again, like if anything, it makes me more frustrated that it's coming out when it is, because it's sandwiched between a lot of other huge games. And that doesn't mean that this is bad or this is a failure or anything. It just means that like it's just coming out at a bad time, you know. And unfortunately, that means that I'm gonna have to wait to play it till like, you know, March or April. But that's just how it is. Fish, thank you for the membership. Thank you, my friend. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think this takes priority for you? Let me do a poll. Let's do a poll. Straw poll. I'm gonna do a poll across our chats. I want to know if you, let's say, will you be playing, not playing, paying, is interesting because this is, of course, a Game Pass title. Let's specifically say Avowed over KCD 2 / AC Shadows / honestly, you might be able to finish this before Monster Hunter. That, I mean, I won't include that one. Yes No. This is at launch. Okay, this is when it comes out specifically. Is it Xbox exclusive? It's on PC, but not a fair comparison. I mean, I don't think it has to be. The point is just, are you going to be playing this over those? If this came out 2 weeks before, I'd be playing this on launch 1000%. For me, if I'm not finished with Kingdom Come or AC, I mean, I think I've got to finish those first. So for me, probably not, even though I think it looks good. Let's see what the results are looking like. Oh, okay. That's better than I thought it would be. Oh yeah, Yakuza's the other one. Just assume that I wrote Yakuza in there if you're going to play that instead. KCD first, but I'm interested in Avowed. I think I'm in the same way. Like, I want to play it. I want to play it. But if the choice is between this and like KCD 2, I think I'm probably going KCD 2 first. But I mean, these are good stats. This is better than I was expecting. So I mean, props to the team. He took my thing.